extremely well, even extremely well scholastically in her school. However, being in an urban setup does not mean equality in healthcare access. Nor does it mean that every single woman in an urban setup receives the care they deserve. This is the story of a lady who had visited our outpatient department, who wanted admission in the hospital because she was a victim of domestic abuse. She wanted to escape no matter what. She couldn't get us to show the injuries. This is how emotionally scarred she was. She required psychiatric evaluation, she required emotional help, as well as tending to her physical injuries. So, before I go into what these graphs depict, I'd like to tell you that India is among the fastest growing economies globally, yet it also ranks among the most unequal nations. Inequality has been significantly increasing over the past 30 years, and the government policies have not done much to help it, which essentially means that the wealthy are becoming wealthier at an even rapid rate, while the less fortunate are finding it more difficult to make a living wage and get access to good education and healthcare. This is due to a consistent lack of funding from the government side for healthcare. Unlike many other Western countries, there's no provision for universal coverage of healthcare in India, which means that either you utilize the very poorly funded and understaffed government facilities, or you spend a fortune from your own money in the private hospitals. So 77% of the total national wealth in India is held by the top 10% of the population, right? So that means 10% of the population holds more than two-thirds of the economic revenue in India. Let that sink in. That means more than 63 million people. This data is from about 3 years ago, and I'm pretty sure it would have hit 1 billion by now. This means that more than 63 million people are driven into poverty every single year due to healthcare expenses, which means every 2 individuals every second. Right? So if you look at this graph, I don't want to go into the statistics of this graph. This is taken from a study from 2016. But as you can see, the access to healthcare as well as the utilization of healthcare services is extremely poor among the people who are not financially endowed versus people who have the economic privileges. This is a ward in the Department of Obstetrics at a government hospital in Bihar. Now, Bihar is a state in India which is densely populated. Poor do not receive adequate health care, and the government facilities are extremely understaffed, nor do they have the economic privileges to access private health care, to an extent that even reaching the nearest town or big city would cost some of them their entire monthly wages. Something that the organizers of this event had asked me was, what would make a future STEM candidate stand out? I'm sure you have multiple guidelines. I'm sure you have multiple counselors who will advise you regarding the same. But something I have learned from my journey is, do not forget the why. Do not forget why you're doing what you're doing. If you combine your hard work with the reason why you're doing what you're doing, there is no reason for you to not stand out. Secondly, while we always associate science with swanky laboratories and absolutely fabulous fancy hospitals with cutting edge research, never forget the underprivileged communities who deserve it the most, people who get neglected the most. So I would like to end my presentation here. I am open to questions now.
I see one question in the chat. What stops us
Yes, I
from
will just
providing
access
medical?
the chat now. Yes, yes. If you could just read it
So,
out for me.
hello? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, I
Yeah.
can hear you. Yes.
Okay. We have a question in the chat from
Hi. Am
Summer.
I audible?
Yes, you're audible. Yeah, yeah. Yes, you are.
Yes.
We have a
Please go
question in the
ahead.
chat on what stops us from providing medical services to all people.
Right. So this question, the answer to this question is actually not something one person can address. It's a policy-based change, right? Um, Countries that function on a corporate basis, right, on a capitalistic basis, um, are more likely to favor those who fund their agenda, right? And I'm not saying that's true of every single country. However, what stops us is the government policies, right? Because we tend to favor the people who, the governments tend to favor the people who support their own agenda, um, support their policies, support their, I'm sure you see it, which is why the question is not just healthcare based. The question here, the answer to this question here is not just related to uh, just building hospitals and making more, minting more doctors each year. The answer is related to providing adequate access, even something as simple as providing quality road care. You'd be surprised at the you know, qual- number of areas in India that can't be reached by roads. It rains and there are landslides, and these communities cannot be utilized, cannot be reached at all. Yes, and secondly, that's why we need good policy makers, which is why we need people from healthcare involved in policy making and just outside the hospital, which is why doctors need to step out into the community and also into the government. I hope I've answered the question, and I'm sure even if I went on for about an hour, it would not suffice. But yes, I think let's stop for now and let's look at
Yeah.
other questions.
I'll
You
do
can
one more.
definitely reach out to me, and we can communicate over
Uh,
email.
Before we get to the hands, I know some people
Yes,
have
please go ahead.
about more about your medical journey and how how you were able to get into your internal medicine residence. So kind of like just a brief journey, like what you did in high school, like how you stood out in applications and all that.
Right, right. So the process of getting into a medical school in India differs significantly from the US. I am not sure if that applies still over there, but something that I'll tell you, I'll start from high school. So we have an entrance examination, which is similar to the SATs that you take in the US. We do not have an undergraduate program prior to the medical school, right? So for us, we start with a med school training straight after high school. There's an entrance exam, and on the basis of those ranks, you're assigned a medical college, right? So, and you can pick what college you want to join on the basis of your rank, right? So, first of all, things I did, which I felt helped me in my medical school journey, was a dedicated study plan. And so, yes, for us, it's extremely theoretical before we get into the medical school, right? So, it was an entrance exam. I dedicated 2 years of my life um alongside studying for my regular high school examinations to crack. It's called the NEET UG exam, right? So that's the National Common Eligibility exam for anybody who wants to get into med school in India. Secondly, I had a service obligation my following the completion of my undergrad med degree. I feel that opened a huge door of possibilities for me because I got exposure in terms of independent surgeries, obstetric care, intensive care, medicine, a whole lot of opportunities to take independent clinical decisions while functioning under a very supportive guide. Secondly, regarding internal medicine, again, unlike the USMLE, uh, this is just a purely theoretical exam, right? So, with what college you get into depends on what kind of marks, what kind of grades you score. Publications are not given much weightage until we finish our residency. So, a lot of importance is given to skills, a lot of importance is given to how you've done in the classroom, right? Yes, I hope that answers your question. If there's anything else, we can definitely discuss this more over emails. I will ensure my email is communicated to the organizers.
Amazing. I'll let Hannah, who's who has her hand up, ask her question.
Right.
My question is, how do you keep going when in the field is very difficult? Like, what motivates you the most? I know life is different in countries in Middle East than the U.S. And for me, I'm from Egypt. It's difficult to get to mid school, and it's not easy. And we should get a specific grade. So, what motivates you the most, and what makes you say that you are 100% sure that you are in the right route for you and that you want to continue in medical school?
Hi, Hannah. Thank you for your question. So, just to clarify, I do not live in the USA. I have not been trained in the USA. So, I can't say I completely understand where you're coming from, but I get a brief, I can get a superficial idea of what you're talking about. Um, so, what motivated me to stay in medical school was that I did not treat this as an occupation. I was 100% sure this is my calling. And even though I know it probably does not hold the same for everybody else, but my faith had a huge role to play in this. And I've always treated this as a calling. It wasn't just a job I had to get. It wasn't just a course I had to get in. What I realized was that every single fact, every single sentence in the page of a textbook is something that could assist me in saving a life someday. And even though a lot of people say that they become callous to the pain and medical needs of others over time, it's good to remind yourself of the why, which is the one big advice I have to give to any aspiring doctor. Do not forget the why. Do not forget what you do. Do not forget why you do what you do. I feel if you have that in place, if you have a vision in place, if you remember why you're doing what you're doing, it the hard days get better. I'm not saying becoming a doctor is extremely easy. I'm not saying the efforts you put in will be rewarded. A lot of times they will not be rewarded, which is why I title my presentation as Many Sleepless Nights, because this is what it'll be. You will spend sleepless nights studying. You will spend sleepless nights at the bedside of the patient. You will spend sleepless nights proving your worth to your seniors, proving why you are worthy enough, to treat this patient, to give somebody this medication, um, you know, to put them out of their suffering, right? And also, it helps to remember that we're just human beings and there's only so much we can do. In fact, the so much we can do is in front of us and it's in a textbook. So there will be difficult days. There will be more difficult days than easier ones, but I can tell you it gets better and it's worth it, provided you're in for the right reasons. So do not forget the why. If you need to take two things from what I spoke about, do not forget the underprivileged, because they're always at the peripheries, right? In a lot of developing countries, these people cannot, they don't even have adequate means to approach a big hospital. Do not forget the marginalized. That term marginalized was coined for a reason, because these people are pushed to the peripheries. They're pushed to the peripheries of policies, they're pushed to the peripheries of monetary benefits, of healthcare, you name it, and they've been pushed to the extreme brink where they need to fight for almost everything. every single thing. Secondly, do not forget the why. So these are two take home messages I'd like you to remember from what we spoke about today.
Amazing response. So I have some questions that participants are putting in the chat about the why.
Yes, please go ahead.
One question is, I'll start with the first one and then go to the second one. How do you find your
Right.
why? And some people are wondering, they're scared that in the future their why might change and they won't might be interested in medicine. How do they approach a situation like that? That might be very, very interested right now, but what if their why changes later? How do you know your why is, it doesn't change? That makes sense.
Right. So it's completely okay for your why to change. Right. So that's called growth. If you're stagnant, you're not growing. It's completely okay if the reason why you took up medicine changes. And also, I need you, to whoever sent out this question, I need you to understand that you're at a crossroad in life where you're taking really big decisions, you're taking big steps to get where you want to be, and that takes courage. So I need you to trust yourself and understand that, you know, uh, you can see this till the end. And even if your why changes, trust yourself, um, to, see yourself through the process. And again, remember, if everything remains the same for you, you're not growing. If everything is stagnant, there was never any room for growth. I would say if your why does not change, that's alarming, right? And the coming to the second part of the question, uh, if you feel that you might not be interested in medicine anymore, um, good for you that you hold a really highly valued degree. You can. There are so many other options for you to branch out to, right? But please cross that bridge when you come to it. Um, you know, Definitely cross that bridge when you come to it. It helps to have backups, but it also helps to trust yourself. Find a balance between the two. And I would say it's good if your why changes. I mean, provided your motivations are correct, it's good if your why changes. See, I can give you my own example. I started off because I was an extremely sensitive child who would be extremely sensitive to people who did not have the same privileges as me. And considering the fact that my grandparents hailed from rural India, and realizing that my future could have possibly been in rural India without the same privileges. Those women I showed, without adequate healthcare access in the first two slides, it could have been me. It was just a difference in, it was sheer luck, sheer fortune that I ended up in the family that I ended up in. Right? It could have been me. Right? So yes, so I would say give yourself some room to change. Allow yourself to grow. And even if your why changes, ride each wave as it comes. So my why started off because I wanted to help the underprivileged. It's changed over the years, over the last decade or so, to involve a lot of other things, like contributing to academics, contributing to healthcare research, contributing to new technology. At the same time, reaching out to the underprivileged, right? So taking this new cutting edge technology to the peripheries of the country. Because what a so called financially privileged person in the city deserves is what an underprivileged tribal daily wage laborer also deserves. Who are we to decide who deserves better healthcare? So it's amazing if your why changes and grows. Let it grow.
Thank you. Yasin?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, you're
Um,
audible.
Good morning, Dr. Shiva. I really liked the segment on the issues that underprivileged people in India face regarding healthcare. And I wanted to ask you, do you think that in relationship to helping disadvantaged people in public healthcare sphere to have more access to healthcare, do you think that policy is more important than research or the direct medical work. And how do you think like a medical student can contribute to helping give access to disadvantaged people in the healthcare sphere? Yeah.
Right. So thank you for your question, and that's a very relevant one, in fact. And I'm so glad that you're thinking about it even as you're a student. You're not waiting to cross the bridge when you're employed um, to help out people in need or contribute to policy change. So I don't think policies will work without adequate infrastructure, and conversely also holds true. Infrastructure cannot function well without policies in place. So, even the simplest of diseases and illnesses have been killing people across um, the developing countries. Something as simple as gastroenteritis, which is basically loose stools, had contributed to more than half of the under 5 mortality, which is alarming because something as simple as feeding the baby would just solve the problem, right? So as a medical student, I would say that you can contribute by, first of all, beginning to think about it, right? Because the government needs new policies. The government needs more people to think and contribute. It shouldn't just be the politicians who decide what happens to our healthcare. We need people from healthcare contributing to healthcare policies. So I think beginning to actively think about a career in healthcare policy is a very good first step. Secondly, helping out, practically speaking, you could help out in medical camps. But before that, before addressing the need, comes identifying the need. So look around you. You do not need to go to the ends of the world to address a marginalized community. There's income disparity that exists in every single country in the world. There are poor people in every single country in the world. And for some reason, our governments wash it over, they push it under the rug to make their statistics look better. I am yet to hear of a country that reports their poverty, hunger, and healthcare access statistics 100% honestly. All of them are underreported. So if you want to start out by communicating to helping out in healthcare access, please look around you. Make a note of people who would find it difficult to access healthcare. It might just be an 80-year-old man who finds it difficult to come to the hospital in the first place. He might be living alone, or he might be living in an assisted healthcare facility. But just to make the effort to reach the hospital for a bed-bound person is a monumental task, right? So look around you, identify the needs, start thinking about how you can work on them, escalate it further, escalate it to your hospital administration, see what you can do, right? Even the smallest of policy changes, even at an institutional level, can help people. Remember, even if you help 10 people, you made 10 lives better, and that impacts their family. So multiply that tenfold. I hope that helps. Again, all of this is stuff that I feel needs to be addressed in a lot of depth. I wish we had more time for that, but you can definitely reach out over email. I will put that in the chat box as well. You can reach out over Instagram, email, whatever suits you.
All right, thank you so much.
The next question is from Dina.
Hi, can you listen to me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, first of
Hi,
all,
yes, you're audible.
okay, thank you for your talk. It was so inspiring. And I wanted to ask you, which college do you went to? The name of it.
I finished my Yes, I finished my undergraduation from Christian Medical College, Vellore, that's in South India, and I'm currently an internal medicine resident at Christian Medical College, Ludhiana, that's in Northwest India.
Okay, thank you so much.
Next question is from Jana Ahmed.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, you're audible. Please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for your inspiring topic. And I just want to ask you, how did you deal with studying, especially that studying medicine is hard and memorizing things and yeah, and dealing with like how did you balance between your life and being a doctor and those things? So yeah.
Um, so I'll be honest, it took a while to understand how to balance everything. I did not find it extremely difficult during med school, but I think the one challenge was the distance for me. I come from North India, and India is a big country, not as big as the USA, but it used to take me a good 8 hours to travel by flight from South India, right? So visits home were only annual. How did I manage studying during med school? So it helps to know what your learning style is. Are you a visual learner? Are you an auditory learner? Do you learn by reading? Do you learn by discussing it with people? Right? So identify what your learning style is. Secondly, identify what your personality style is like. Right? Are you more of an extroverted person who would, you know, uh, rather who feels energized while socially interacting with people, or are you more of an introvert who would rather get drained during social interactions? So here's why it matters, right? So during your study breaks, during the time you prepare for an exam, you would naturally be surrounded by your peers, right? If you are somebody who's more of an introvert, I would say keep to yourself. Do what you're comfortable with. You do not necessarily have to participate in group discussions or interacting with your peers just because people say it's a method to learn, right? So I would say first get to know yourself. That's step one. That's extremely important. Um, Secondly, do not burn yourself out while studying. I use something known as the Pomodoro technique, where I would study for 25 minutes and I would take a 5 minute break. Now, this break needs to be productive, right? I cannot spend time on, out of those 5 minutes of break, I can't spend time on Instagram where my mind doesn't get to take a break. So I'd probably go for a short walk or listen to some calming music or or have a snack, or I talk to my parents. And I'd repeat the cycle of studying for 25 minutes, taking a break for 5 minutes, and I would repeat the cycle for 5 cycles, which essentially comes up to about 2.5 hours, and then I would take a long break. And another advice I have for you is, do not neglect your life. Do not neglect your health. Do not neglect your community. Do not neglect your hobbies, because remember, medicine is just one part of you. Um, your career is just one part of who you are, and there's so much more to you. And you can only pour from a full cup, right? If you're running empty, if you're running dry, you can never pour into the community service. You can never, study to the best of your potential. Fifth, very important, watch what you eat. Avoiding processed sugar, avoiding processed food has made a huge impact on how I focus, on how I stay alert, right? Um, Also, timing your study, your major chunk of studying with when your exam's going to be. For example, if you're somebody who studies better at night, I would suggest a month before your exams, please try to reset your sleep wake cycle if that's possible, right? If that's something you could function with. um, so yeah, so that you can function better in the morning. If your body is not used to functioning in the morning at its optimum, it's not going to function well. You are a function of what you practice. So practice giving good vivas, practice giving good answers, practice all of this. Because during the exam time, I feel you function because of a lot of anxiety, because of a lot of background noise, our thoughts, a lot of pressure, often self imposed actually. You will probably function only at 60% of what you possibly can. So make your 100% so amazing, absolutely stellar, that even that 60% is really good. Um, Something else I wanted to mention was work on your fitness, because you're going to be working long hours. You're going to be on your feet often 36 hours out of 48 hours. You need to stay alert. We're not in the kind of job that we can afford to make mistakes. So, you know, don't pressure yourself, but also train yourself to do things right the first time itself. Right? And give yourself the grace and the time to learn to get there, right? It's not going to happen in an instant, it's not going to, you can't snap your finger and be absolutely perfect or know everything. Practice during med school so that you can be perfect during the years you practice as a doctor. So there's a lot more about how you should learn and everything. And teaching your peers helps. If you don't function well in social settings, just take a water bottle or take a hairbrush. Teach the hairbrush, right? Repetition works. Regular revisions work. And take a break, live a life. I mean, you've got just one, right? So, yeah.
Amazing answer. Amazing answer. The next question we'll take from Feruza. Okay, we'll come back to Feruza. Selma.
Yes. What are your recommended solutions for the medical issues that we face nowadays that me as an individual can help with?
Hi, I missed the last part of your question.
Hello?
Hi, you're audible. I just couldn't get the last part of your question.
Okay, I mean that we as individuals, how can we help to solve the medical issue that we face nowadays? I mean, what are your recommended solutions for those issues?
All right. First of all, take care of your own health. So, an individual is what makes a community. So, please take care of your health, first of all. So, me being a doctor, advising a cardiovascular patient eat healthy food and go low fat doesn't make sense if I myself can't practice what I preach, right? So the cornerstone or the most basic step in taking care of the community is to address an individual's needs first. Start with yourself, then start with your family, then educate your family and educate your community, right? So that's step one. Um, the other thing you can do as an individual is question your government. Please question your government, because the moment you stop questioning people in authority, I'm not saying it has to be acrimonious, I'm not saying you need to start a movement, but question every single policy, right? Question if the healthcare policy that exists in your country is it is it something that reaches the masses, or is it something that's meant to benefit just a few people who can possibly benefit the government too, right? Begin with these two, and I promise everything else will fall into place. And thirdly, I would say do not underestimate what you can do as an individual, right? Even practical small things like helping somebody get to a hospital is a big thing, because hey, you still saved a life, right? So I would say just watch out for needs in a community. And once you start watching out for these needs in a community, you realize there's way more than what one person can do. And I believe when all of us begin to watch out for these needs in the community and pick up one need that we could possibly address as a group or as an individual, I'm sure it'll fix a lot of things in the world.
That was really inspiring. I think it's
So
really
yeah.
important that we look into ourselves before we can help other people and challenge how our government works. So yeah. The next question is by Nada. Omar?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I want to ask that when I see the medical students around me, especially in my country, which is Egypt, I saw that they are put under a great stress and pressure. They cannot study their curriculums well, and because of their many tests and quizzes. So how can I handle this when I get into this?
I'd suggest, first of all, so there's something known as like, I forgot the name of the technique. It's not coming to me now, but then it's like, just cruising through your course material, not necessarily memorizing it, but just looking through what are the basic headings, what are the keywords before you go for a class. Just spend 5 minutes looking through the courseware of each class, flip through it, right? And of course, this is when it's a purely teaching based session and you do not have any pre-tests associated with it. um, Secondly, pay attention in class. Try to memorize whatever you can. Optimize your attention during that particular academic session. Give it your best. And believe me, that is the listening in class and attending classes is the best way to have a life outside med school, because you're not putting in double the time or double the effort. You listen in class, you take back what you need to take back, and you're done. You hit the nail the first time it needs to be hit. Third, go back and read what you've read. Go back and read further. Listen to what your teachers tell you. Fourth, spaced repetitions. Set an alarm. If you guys have any calendar app, set an alarm for yourself on, let's say, 1 week from when you study the topic, that you will flip through the course material then. This is something that's helped me memorize things for a long period of time. And of course, exam pattern varies for different stages in your career. Sometimes it could be a subjective exam. Oftentimes it is a multiple choice question. A lot of times it could be a skills demonstration. So I would say keep being an observant learner, keeping your eyes and your ears open is the best way to learn things for a really long time, keep them memorized, and do it in a really short period of time. And find somebody you can hold yourself accountable to. You know, um, have a good community of support system. Have your support system in place. I know of many places that make it unnecessarily difficult for a student to do well just because they believe that medicine is supposed to be a stressful profession. It doesn't sound logical, it has no rhyme or reason, but that's the way it's been. As you progress along your journey, you'll see more of it. But I would say have your support system in place, identify um, methods to find out, identify what helps you de stress, and use that well. Take a break. I hope that answers your question.
Amazing response. One question from the chat from Raisa. Let me know if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly. How do you
Yes.
think public policies can help people who can't afford medical treatment? I live in Brazil, and people here have something called the SUS, which is a public medical program for free for the population who can't afford private hospitals. So countries who don't have these systems, honestly, is a cultural shock for me. How do you think policies can end that and provide care for all?
Right. So, similar to Brazil, I mean, I've heard about this really superficially from you now. But for people who cannot afford medical care, there's a lot of government policies in place in India as well, right? And there are government hospitals where healthcare is provided free of cost. However, what's in question is the quality of that healthcare. Secondly, the all these facilities are extremely understaffed. So I'm talking about an internal medicine resident looking at 200 patients in one night, which is almost an impossible and a really, really difficult task for anybody. Difficult to remember what each patient has, right? So, if you ask me what kind of policies would help these people in need, I would say make healthcare free, make it affordable, or let your government policies function in a way that enables people of all forms of livelihood to earn a respectable income income so that they can afford these extra medical costs? So, again, a very broad question. I know people who've spent a lifetime studying this. Um, yes, so this is briefly what I feel. I'm not a public health professional, but yes.
I see. Great. How do you integrate public health within medicine? I know in the US you can do like dual degrees. Um,
Yeah.
is the medical education in India, does it cover public health? Do you think there's a gap in education? And if people are
Yes.
interested in public health, how do they get it? How do they get the knowledge needed to make change?
Yeah. So I'm not sure about if this course is offered in the USA, but there's a course in, there's an entire residency program in community medicine in India. There's also masters in public health that somebody from a non-medical background can get into. Of course, there's other criteria like they should have studied science and should have come from a STEM background. Yes, but there are courses offered. I think there's a gap in the education that is being offered. The truth is there's not enough job opportunities for doctors in rural India. There's not enough. The income gap between doctors in rural India versus urban India is extremely wide, right? So there's no standardized pay. Is something that is extremely bothersome. So, yes, I wouldn't say that there's a gap in the education being provided. I would still say that it is something that needs to be worked on in terms of the policy decisions, in terms of who's to decide the policy, right? Even if you have, let's say, um, millions of public healthcare professionals in a country, if the people on top, if the people who take the decisions as to what policy needs to be implemented do not pay heed to the opinions and expertise of these people due to their corrupt practices, um, there's no point, right? So it also depends on who, as we being citizens of a democratic country, put in power. So there's a lot of issues. Yeah, so health is it's not a medical issue. I want you guys to remember this thing. Health is not a medical issue. It's a social, political, and economic issue, right? It's not just about the hospital. There's a million things that go in the background of a person receiving adequate health care, beginning from uh, can the person even get to the door of their house? Does the person have access to basic transport? If they have a means of transport, is there even a functional road? I mean, I know it sounds bizarre to a lot of people, but that's the truth in India, in a lot of places, right? So, is there an accessible road, right? If it's a woman, will she get harassed or attacked in the middle of the night? Can she step out alone without a male relative? There are countries in the world where stepping out without a male relative is illegal. You can be stoned to death. You can be imprisoned. I'm not sure of the penalties, but it's illegal to step out without a male relative, right? So can this woman access this transport, this healthcare, even before she gets there? What if she gets to the hospital and she does not have money to even take out a basic registration fee to enroll as a patient in the hospital? Does she have the adequate education or the awareness of her own symptoms, of his or her own symptoms, to tell the doctor what they're feeling, tell the doctor what they're experiencing? Have they had that autonomy ever in life to express and speak up? If you come from a background where you find this bizarre, believe me, you're privileged. Because there are parts of the world, parts of this country that I've witnessed where speaking up in the presence of men is frowned upon. You will not be deemed as a respectable woman if you speak in the presence of older men and voice your own opinion. So, how would this uh, young woman, already oppressed by the society, find her way into a hospital and find the courage to speak to a doctor who's possibly way older than her when all her life she's been told she should not speak in front of elders? And of course, necessity takes over traditional norms, but that's how it's been. There are women who do not know how to operate an ATM. So, how would she get the money out of her bank account? So, there's a lot of things that determine healthcare access. Health is not a medical issue. Please remember that. So, could we take just one more question?
Yeah, we'll take one more question. We'll take it
And
from
perhaps the rest we could.
yeah.
Yes.
So we'll take it from I the next hand up is from Hannah Hamdi.
Yeah, it's me again. I'm the first question. I just want to say thank you for the inspiring talk. I didn't have the time to say it. You're really inspiring.
All right. Well,
Thank you.
the the if anyone has a Noor, do you have a question you want to provide? And then
Oh, yes. Am I audible?
yes.
Okay,
Yes, you
so
are. Hi.
first, thanks for your talk. Second, I'm wondering, um, from your opinion, what's the best way to study biology for a high schooler?
Hi, you're not audible anymore. Because your voice was a little was breaking a little in between. Did you mean that what is the best way to study biology?
Yeah.
Right. So I would suggest, first of all, identify what your learning style is. Okay. Are you a visual learner? Are you an auditory learner? Do you learn better by reading? Do you learn better when somebody teaches it to you? Right. So identify that. Second, apply it in what you read. So if you are an auditory learner, pay more attention in class, pay more attention in what you're being taught. And possibly, if you have a PDF version, there are multiple AI softwares that will enable you to, listen to an auditory version of that. You don't necessarily need to have an audiobook. If you're a visual person, make flow diagrams. I'm more of a visual learner, so I make flow charts. I make flow diagrams, and in fact, I've incorporated it in a lot of my exams. Right. So yes. So begin with that and space repetition. Reread what you've read. That's literally the only way to memorize facts. And if you want to know more, definitely get in touch. I would love to send you more studies, more, uh, things related to your personality. So learning is not uniform. It's not the same for everybody else. So yes, just see what suits your personality. I've taken a lot of countercultural decisions, which seemed extremely absurd to people around me, but hey, it worked out in the end.
Well, such an insightful and amazing presentation, Dr. Shiba. As a someone we just actually had a public health presentation a couple of weeks ago, like last Wednesday. So I know this talk definitely included on some of the aspects that we discussed as a group. So thank you so much for providing even more insight into that. It was an amazing speaking session. We would like to provide all our amazing speakers a round of applause. So if everyone can click the Zoom and give Dr. Shiba a round of applause. That would be amazing. And as you're doing this, I want to let you know that Dr. Shiba has allowed us to. We will provide her email and contact information where you can contact her if you have any questions. I know we didn't get through all the questions, which happens, but if you have any specific questions, I know she'd be more than glad to help you answer. So, yeah, let's give her a round of applause.
Yes, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. And thank you so much for enabling me to show everybody what people in my country go through. I feel it's so important to talk about. And I'm going to put my email in the chat right now. And please feel free to reach out over that. Please feel free to reach out over Instagram. I am not extremely active over Instagram, but I'd be happy to help, whatever helps you out, right? Um, right. So it's a fairly simple email and Instagram. right? So, yes, good luck and God bless. So, yes, is it okay if we close the session here?
Yes. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. As Dr. Sheep departs, I will launch our poll for today. All right, the poll is launched. Please answer the poll. I see. Okay, people are starting to answer it. If you're having trouble answering it, please direct message Rourke on Slack. But we'll keep it open for a little bit as we transition.
I can't find the mail of the doctor. Can you send it on
Yeah,
Slack?
we will send it on Slack after the session. 100%. And as you finish answering the poll, we will head to a medical debate very soon. Just to let you know again, the medical debate is not required, and well, we would love for everyone to participate. Our attendance is only for the first hour today. And I'll hand over the mic to Davina to discuss some of the logistics around the medical debate today.
Where's the pool?
The poll should be launched. If you don't see it, please reach out to Warwick on Slack right now, and he'll be able to answer. I'll take a couple questions if anyone has any before we transition to the medical debate in a couple minutes. Hannah?
I have this trouble understanding how we will get the certificate. Can you please clarify this misunderstanding? I don't know how it works. Like we should attend the sessions if there's a
Yeah.
homework, if there's a
So
project.
if you read the program rules and guidelines that were sent on Slack, we require you to attend at all the sections, and you can miss up to two. For the two that you miss, you can watch a recording and send it. If you have specifics on how to get a certificate, just message Davina on Slack or Rourke, and they can definitely help you. But yeah. But if you attend the sessions and complete the post program homework, you should be all set.
I completed, but I didn't post that I completed it. Is
No
that
worries. The post
noise?
program homework will be sent later. There was no required homework for any of the sessions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course. And then Yassine, I see your hand is up.
Can I ask a question about the debate thing, or
Yes, the
do we
debate will
ask them
start.
later? Because
We'll start
you said,
just in a couple minutes.
yeah, okay.
Yes. I'll take two more questions before we transition to the debate. Yasmin?
Yeah. I wanted to ask a question about the attendance pool. I submitted, but I think there is no problem for submitting that.
Are you talking about the poll? The poll is only one question, and if you submit it, if you're having trouble submitting it,
I
message.
submitted it, but they don't appear to me the message that thanks for submitting.
Oh, I see. Well, if you have any concerns about if your poll went through, if you message Work on Slack, he will make sure, like, he will note that for you. So no worries if you cannot answer the poll, if you're having issues. If you do message him within the program timing right now, we will have that taken care for you. So
Okay, thanks.
and then I'll take one last question from Sammy.
It's okay. Hello. Hello first. And I want to ask about it's okay to leave now after answering the poll or not?
Yes,
If you are, yeah,
please
okay.
leave. Yeah, if you're not planning on participating in the debate, could you actually please head out now so that way we can create our breakout rooms just based on the people that want to be here for the debate. So it's totally okay if you don't want to do the debate. If you've answered the poll and you've messaged Rourke on Slack, please head out now. And then that way we can create our breakout rooms. So I just want to give everyone a quick reminder about the format of the debate. I'll send the document in the chat again as well. So how the debate will work is, as you can see on the document, there are 4 different topics. We're going to try to get to all 4 topics today, but if you're in a room and you guys are all talking about a lot of things and you don't get to talk about all the topics, it's okay. We would encourage you to have your cameras on once we invite you to a breakout room, but it's not required. There's going to be one team member in the room with you. We're just there to kind of be flies on the wall. We don't want to be taking over the conversation, but if we notice that people aren't talking that much, maybe we'll transition you into a different topic or things like that. But we're just there to make sure everything goes smoothly. And then you're more than welcome to talk about all of the topics that are there. Please start with the first topic, which I sent out in the Google Doc. And you can talk about anything you want really about that. Someone can start off by asking a question and then everyone can just kind of go from there. If you need help, we're here, so you can come back. But it's also really important for all of you to note that if you get disconnected during the debate, please make sure you remember which breakout room number you were in, so that way when you rejoin the meeting, we can add you back to the right one. And yes, we're going to be ending our recording right now because we're not recording the debate or the